they're enclosing the net on us right now, I think, with transportation. This is the next big control area that they're putting in place very rapidly. It was less than a year ago that the UK, the European governments, and the US government got into a competition as to who could change their laws quickly enough to allow, quote unquote, self driving cars. Of course, those are not self driven, they're computer driven, they're government controlled, government monitored cars. It's a way for them to enact a complete control grid of you. And of course, this is something that is being done internationally. Just as we were talking to Paul Joseph Watson about the plans coming out in the UK, we have plans being made in the United States, as well as mandates coming online with vehicle-to-vehicle communication. But of course, this all plays into the UN Agenda 21, trying to limit our scope of movement, trying to confine us to certain small areas where we're all going to live in a very high density, essentially making it very easy to control us. There's not only a prison planet, but it's going to be a plantation planet. It's a way of watching everything we do, keeping us under strict control. It's something we should all be very concerned about. And she's going to talk to us about not only what's happening here in Texas, but what's happening in California, what's happening globally. So wherever you live, this is something that you've already seen to some degree in your area. They may have already enacted part of it in your area without you understanding what's going on. But believe me, there is a lot more coming. Now, we're going to go to some of your calls here in a moment. The number is 800-259-9231. I want to take some of your calls about perhaps some of the transportation issues that we talked about, or the global trade issues. Of course, there were people that crashed the Trans-Pacific Partnership meeting in Congress yesterday, protesting it. The fact that we have a massive, sold as a trade agreement. It's not a trade agreement. It is far beyond trade. It has issues that relate to internet control, to copyright. It's going to have massive issues as far as GMO goes, as far as pharmaceuticals go. It is far beyond just a trade agreement. And of course, it is not a free trade agreement. You don't need thousands of pages of document negotiated in secret by corporate lobbyists to have free trade. You can have free trade without that. What this is trade that is managed for the benefit of the corporations that are creating this agreement. It's a very dangerous thing, and it goes far beyond trade. And of course, as we saw the people protesting that, still most people don't really understand that it's even happening, and they don't see it in the bigger picture of things. It's far beyond just losing our jobs and losing our freedoms. It's about consolidating the world into regional blocks that are then joined together. That's the next case that they've done. First, they create the regional blocks like NAFTA. They create the European Union. Then they start consolidating those groups, and that's the stage that we're at now. And of course, this is a secret agreement that we are not allowed to see. We're not allowed to make decisions about our lives. We're not allowed to make decisions about our families, what they're going to have. And of course, that's a big part of Obamacare. You can talk about whether or not it's efficient. You can talk about the data, and you can play games with the data, as we mentioned in the first hour, how they're Grubering the data, trying to show that it's actually been a 20% decrease by just looking at a 5-year projection, when the 10-year projection from the CBO has increased by 12% in just the last 3 years over a 10-year period. So it's not affordable, but it's not even about that. It's about having the freedom to make the decisions about our lives. And of course, one of those things is, what are we going to have in our drinking water? We have a California city saying that black sediment-filled tap water is, quote, safe to drink. And if you're watching on video, just take a look at this. Pull this article up, guys, and show them a picture that somebody took of the tap water. I mean, it looks like crude oil coming out of the tap. And of course, the Golden State Water Company claims that this grotesque, foul-smelling, black sludge, quote-unquote, water is safe to drink. Well, let's see a picture of them drinking that on video. I don't think I would want to drink that. But of course, if you see the black water coming out, you might start to have questions about whether or not this is safe. But when it is something like fluoride that you can't see, maybe you don't have the same understanding of the danger. We've just had a year of debate in Dallas about whether they were going to take fluoride out of the water supply. Looked like they were going to do it for a while, but then they have just taken the vote and they've decided that they're not going to remove fluoride from the water supply. And that's the way it's being reported in the Dallas Morning News. It's almost as if the fluoride was already there and they decided that they're not going to run everything through a ProPure filter to get it out of there. No, they're putting the fluoride in. It's not a natural situation, and it is not something that you need to do for your health. Look at what they said in the article. They said $1,060,800 is the contract that they have with Mosaic Crop Nutrition to fluoridate Dallas's water. So they're going to a crop nutrition company to get this fluoride put in the water. Why would they be going to a crop company to put this in? Well, I don't know, but they use fluoride as a pesticide on crops. Maybe that's why they're getting it, because it's not just even the fact that they're putting fluoride in, but it's the form of fluoride that they're putting in. Of course, it's industrial waste from aluminum companies, from nuclear waste, from the processing of nuclear products, uranium. They have been taking this industrial waste from the aluminum and nuclear industries, and instead of those people having to dispose of it as a toxic waste and spend the money, they dump it into our water supply and charge us, in the case of Dallas, $1 million to put this pesticide stuff into the water supply. But of course, it's for the children. That's what they said. The doctor said, yes, saving $1 million would be great, but the cost to our youngest citizens would be higher. They might have a cavity or something. Listen, if you want to take a supplement for your kids, if you want to put something on their teeth, fine. Do you think that it's really safe for your children to mass medicate the public by dumping this into the water? The children are the ones at most risk of getting overexposure to fluoride. And we've had studies over and over again, the Harvard study most recently, showing too much fluoride causes a loss of 20 IQ points. They found that in China. 20 IQ points. That's huge. That's a huge difference. That's a difference from a normal intelligence to a moron level intelligence. 20 IQ points. Now, how do you control the amount of fluoride that anyone gets if you're going to dump it into the water? If you think that it's safe and effective, you may be under-medicating adults. You may be over-medicating children. Should children have the same dosage of any medicine that adults get? Of course not. I mean, it's absolute idiocy, but they can't figure it out because it's not totally black like the water in California. And it's not just that. It's not just the fluoride, but now they're starting a campaign of demonizing people who don't want to get their children vaccinated because of this measles outbreak in Disneyland. And of course, Rob Dew did an extensive report on that the other night on the nightly news. We now see that a doctor who is educating the public on vaccines traveling through Australia, this is an article that's up on Infowars.com today, that she's actually getting bomb threats and she's had to cancel the tour. This is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who we've had on the show here several times, announced that she has had to cancel speaking appearances that were scheduled for Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, and the Gold Coast. The reason was due to pro-vaccine extremists calling for violence and making bomb threats against venue owners and their families in some cities that were originally scheduled for healthy living seminars. See, we can't even talk about this without the extremists threatening people over vaccines. Look at the difference in the way they've reacted to this measles outbreak versus the way they reacted to the Ebola outbreak. They shut down the clinics when they had people come in with measles. They shut them down very quickly. We've got the CDC and all the health officials giving us dire predictions about what's going to happen with measles. I've had measles. I'm not afraid of measles. People my age, all the children were given measles by their parents. Whenever they found a kid down the street had measles, they sent the kids down to get it because it's a minor childhood disease. It's more serious if you get it as an adult. But they wanted the kids to have a good immunity against measles, get it when it wasn't going to affect them that much. It's not the same thing as Ebola, but when Ebola was breaking out, they were reluctant to close down places. They didn't take precautions for a couple of days. That's why nurses got sick. And the CDC was constantly going into the public saying, it's nothing to worry about. Believe me, we've got this all under control. You're not hearing that about measles. They are pushing the hype, the panic, because they want to sell vaccines. Look at this other story. The Palm Desert High School sends home 66 unvaccinated students. This is because they had one student showed up with a suspected case of measles. She was cleared to return to class on Tuesday. So it's not even clear that to me that she even had measles. And yet we're hearing things from the parents associated with this Disneyland outbreak. We're hearing there was an article from a parent who was in Alaska. Her daughter had been vaccinated twice for MMR. They went to Disneyland. She came down with measles, and she was absolutely convinced that her child got it from these unvaccinated kids, presumably, who were at Disneyland with measles. The vaccine didn't protect her child. There was never they never entertained the thought that her child might have gotten measles from the vaccine, that patient zero in this Disneyland outbreak could have been a patient who came down with measles after they got vaccinated. That was never an issue. But she ended with the absurd statement that my daughter got measles after she was vaccinated. That's why everybody needs to get vaccinated. And it's like, how can you say that? If the measles were, the vaccines were effective, you wouldn't get measles. And to say that you're going to mandate it on everybody else because it didn't work on your child, absolute insanity. Idiocracy. Maybe it's the fluoride in the water. We'll be right back with your calls. Stay with us.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by real FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. People are suffering from all kinds of digestive issues these days. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. My main focus was to come up with a remedy for this, something that's safe and effective that anyone can take on a regular basis to keep their intestinal lining clean. My recommendation is to clean your intestines at least 2 to 3 times a week to prevent the toxic buildup from going into your bloodstream. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.